Gold Invest. Explore opportunity.
PTX on the TSXV Venture Exchange has had an exceptional start to the new year, rising from 13 cents at the end of 2025 to 21 cents now in a very short time. We want to know what's going on, and we were able to reach CEO Greg Ferron for an update. Welcome, Greg.
Hi, Bjorn. Nice seeing you again. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. Greg, to start us off, please give us a high-level overview of what PTX Metals is about for viewers that might not be familiar with the company yet.
Sure. Yeah. So we're an Ontario-focused company, and we've got, we assembled a very nice portfolio, as you know, over the last several years, and we've been doing exploration and development, just de-risking these assets. And we've got a nice mix of projects. We've got our flagship W2, which is a copper nickel mafic project, and it's also got precious metals as well. And it really benefits from the fact that there's been a lot of historical exploration done by two top producers in Canada. And I put the project back together, and coincidentally, of course, the Ring of Fire has seen a lot of attention in terms of infrastructure. And one thing, for the viewers to know, we've got the best positioning in that camp, having the closest access to Pickle Lake, where there's existing infrastructure, existing winter roads, a number of First Nations. And as you know, we're on our 5th exploration program at W2. And then we've also got a very nice large land position down beside Côté Gold, IAMGOLD's flagship open pit in Timmins Camp. And we're nestled between that and the Juby deposit, which has also been having some excellent drill results. And we've been doing a systematic exploration program with the Shining Tree Gold Projekt over the last number of years. And we've also got an interest in a Saskatchewan-focused uranium company that's going public. So investors get, nice diversification, a strong jurisdiction. There's a lot of liquidity in the shares. And then we're going to continue to advance both that copper and gold projects over the next several years.
Okay, so it seems you'll have a lot to do for the next couple of years still. But let's start with the W2 project. Give us also just short overview. Where are you at? What did you do in 2025? What were the goals? What was achieved?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So you remember with W2, we put together that large 43101 exploration target, which is basically initially started off with all that historical drilling, the 120 drill holes over about an 8-kilometer strike length located in the central project. And this mineralization is right at surface. So what we're doing with that is, first of all, we're improving the data quality of it through infill drilling and step-out drilling. So a lot of the work, for example, what Inco was doing, they were just selectively sampling sections, for the first 100 meters, say, and within that 100 meters, they were just assaying the massive sulfides. So what we're doing is we're extending the holes, down a couple 100 meters deeper, assaying for all the commodities, and then getting that resource compliant. And it's a big tons at this point. You're using a conservative cutoff. It's about 2.3 billion pounds of copper equivalent. And what's quite interesting is we created a new geological model with the new MAG. So we're taking advantage of all new technology. So a new MAG survey we did for about $1 million over the course of the project, new LIDAR, VTEM, and we've assembled a new geological model. And we think we've got a better understanding of where the high grade sits in the different zones between the volcanics and the gabbro. And so what's interesting is it's showing us, one, there's a lot more gabbro potential at depth. It's the first time we've ever looked down 500 meters. There's a lot more potential outside these known deposits. So we think we can extend at surface. And then it's also helping us focus on the high grade potential, because we've seen up to 14% copper, 11 grams gold, for example, 2 to 4 grams platinum palladium when we hit the massive sulfides. So we seem to be having more success in our exploration finding mineralization at depth, because these are layered intrusions. So we're not surprised to find another layer at depth, and also helping us focus on finding more high grade zones. So before the break, we did a number of step out holes, so about 2 to 100 meters away from the known mineralization. So fairly significant step out holes, and extended them down about 400 meters. And now what we'd like to do is then go in and do a number of infill holes in the resource areas we know quite well. And we're testing this new geological model. And if that's successful in finding, more mineralization with more grade, it'll really help us expand in other higher risk areas.
Okay, and so you started the drill program already, right? And end of last year. And I
That's
think
correct.
that was for 5,000 meters. So if you're having success, if the new model and all the other data you gathered is working out, showing you, and you see, okay, this is working, is the possibility of extending that program?
Yeah, well, for sure. So it's our third drill program. We did two in 20 last year and one in 24.
Mhm.
And we're also doing a lot of engineering as well, just to mention metallurgy, pit shell design for the first time and that type of work. But yeah, so the idea will be is, to do these first step out holes, a bit of infill drilling. Let's look at the assays, and then if they're successful, we'll continue doing both, just continuing to get these, because these are quite large ton deposits. The CA1, the CA2 zone, that extends for about 3 kilometers, and most of that is well drilled. There's an area in the middle that isn't. So that's where we could continue step out drilling. At the same time, you want to get that area compliant, in a proper resource with pit shells and to show the continuity. So we can definitely continue that step out and expansion and infill drilling throughout this year. Obviously, there's going to be some funding needed as well to continue, because it is a more expensive area to work compared to our South Timmins Shining Tree project in Timmins. You drive in with roads, the cost of labor and supplies are much cheaper. Working in the northern part of Ontario, there's a lot of fly in, fly out operations, so the costs are much higher. We did set up our own exploration camp for the first time this year at W2. And the other thing I just wanted to bring attention to is, we're obviously doing a lot of work on the community side. This part of Ontario hasn't had near the amount of exploration or development, say, as Red Lake or Thunder Bay, Timmins, Sudbury, for example. So we
Yes.
have been working very cooperatively with Webequie. We've had about 10 employees involved with our program, either full-time or part-time, directly working at the project in the drilling program, or providing supplies. And then we're also working with some of the other communities getting exploration agreements done. We did sign a partnership agreement with Webequie last year.
Okay, so I see you're well advanced in your plans there, but you still have a lot to do. And as you said, yeah, that was what I'm going to talk about the finances a bit later. But I mean, you did the financing, I think, October last year for a couple of million, 4.6 or 6.4 million. I don't know,
Yeah, you're
something
right.
like that. And so that, of course,
6.5.
gives you
Yeah.
leeway. But if you have a project like W2, that's on the one side big and on the other hand a bit more remote, of course, that makes you so see that you have to fund. But that's the exploration business. Let's talk about the gold project then. In times of gold near 5,000 US dollars an ounce. So the Shining Tree, you talked a bit about that. You had some results back in December from a work program, some high grade results. Perhaps you could just quickly again summarize those results and what they told you for future work programs.
Sure. Okay. Well, yeah, Shining Tree, very different camp down in southern Ontario, surrounded by operating gold mines. We're on the Rideout Deformation Zone that hosts the Côté Projekt, for example, and the Juby. And we've got a very nice, large land position there, about 300 square kilometers. And so, big property, as you know, we've been systematically over the last several years working both regionally and in the central area where there was some past production. And then we found that high grade zone last year. I think it was 9 grams over 16 meters at surface in a trenching program.
Nice.
So we decided to focus on that area. We did all new mag survey, so updated the technology across the whole property. So that happened in October, November. And then we've also hired SRK to do some structural work to sort of better understand the potential of that central area. And those are some of the high grade samples they found around the Rhonda project, which we announced in December. So now we're finally ready with the new mag survey to go and drill
Okay.
that central area at surface. And there was past production in the underground. So what we're trying to do is develop a resource in the central area down to the underground, because the past production was, they were just mining the veins. They weren't looking to sort of build any kind of resource tonnage.
Okay, so when could we expect the drilling to start? If you say you're now ready from having gathered the information to do so,
Yeah.
well, what's the plans there?
Yeah, well, it's a very easy project to work on. It's permitted. Luckily, Rhonda is right on a highway, so you can get access to the project within, I don't think it's 300 meters from the road. So it's something we can do anytime. So we'll look to begin drilling, I'd say, by March, by the time we'll be ready. We're just doing the final hole analysis, which I actually just saw the presentation on Friday. We'll start with a small program, 5-6 holes down 200-300 meter holes across that Ronda Central area. Mm-hmm. So then the results would come sort of April, I guess, by the time they'd be April, May, by the time they're ready.
Okay. So another thing to look forward to, and certainly let's talk at the latest, again, when we see these results coming out. As you said in the beginning of our interview, is you got the W2 with the base metals and precious metals in a large volume. You've got the gold project and the Shining Tree, but you also have the Green Canada project. I don't think we have talked to our audience too much about that yet. So perhaps you can give us a rundown there too. I think that's uranium in Saskatchewan mostly. Or
yeah, that's correct. Yeah. And the reason we did that is I do think W2 is a company maker. I think, with that access we have in terms of infrastructure and the size of the project, it is something that we could look to exit at some point to a larger player, say through a joint venture or a sale of the company. So we thought it made sense with the uranium project to just focus the company. And it's also big cost savings because, as you know, holding all these uranium projects, yes, there's a big cost for shareholders. So we thought it was more efficient to spin it out to a separate company. So we own about 50% of the equity, and we've raised about $1.5 million, I guess, over the last year. And we put in a very nice new project from Canalaska and Basin Energy. It's a classic sort of deep underground target right in the basin near Cameco and Canalaska's discoveries. And so that's going to begin trading in March. And we're just raising some funding for it now. And then once we get listing approval later this month, we'll then do one final financing and get that project drilled. And it'll be separately traded company, separate management team. I'll be on the board. And then eventually the idea would be PTX could look to, dividend those shares possibly or hold it as an investment. And we're also, looking at a lot of other projects in the sector. There's very few companies are doing, good exploration in the uranium sector. So we're looking at all different parts of the world. And we'll obviously be started in Canada. And we may continue to expand outside of the basin, but for now, that's going to be our focus.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I think uranium is going to be a very interesting sector to be in over the next couple of years for sure, at least. Okay, yeah. So to wrap it up, then tell our audience why, in your opinion, is now a good point in time to have a closer look at PTX Metals.
Well, a few reasons. If you look technically at the chart, as you know, we've consolidated, Bjorn, the shares for a number of years. And now it's starting to sort of break out on, improving market conditions and just the fact that we've had some good results over the past number of years. And there's a big interest in Ontario, and I think we're well positioned with that copper project, the uranium spinoff, and then that gold asset, I think, is quite undervalued in the portfolio. So I think people are recognizing that value as we de-risk that big deposit and, we expand that deposit at W2. The metallurgy results coming out later this quarter. I think all that is now starting to be priced into the stock. So there's lots of liquidity. We trade a lot of volume in the US. We trade a lot of volume on the TSX as well. I still think we're, heavily undervalued compared to some of our peers with about a 30 million market cap. Yeah. So I think that's kind of the best
well, a lot of work to do, but a lot of potential catalysts coming up, let's say, with the drill results from at least 2 and later on then 3 projects with the uranium. Well, I'm certainly looking forward to see how it all goes. Thank you for taking the time. We'll be sure, as I said, to talk again once there's drill results out at the very latest. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Bjorn.